Mad was a brainchild of EC Comics, a company run by Bill Gaines, who had inherited the business from his father in 1947. EC Comics was profitable and, true to the times, not at all controversial.
Everything that you saw in the media was very clean. TV was very clean. Couples slept in separate beds.
Bill Gaines wanted to go against the grain, create some attitude. So he set about rebuilding his comic book line, first by churning out more provocative comics like science fiction and horror. Then in 1952, Gaines and his young staff came up with the idea to spoof the very genre they produced. They named the new publication Mad. In October, the first issue of Mad, the comic book, appeared. Sales started out slow, but by issue number 4, they hit pay dirt with a spoof entitled Super Duper Man. Success was at hand, until the censors came knocking. Frederick Wortham, the head of mental hygiene at New York's Bellevue Hospital, was so sure comics were dangerous, he wrote a book, Seduction of the Innocent, damning comic books as a bad influence in every single delinquent or disturbed child we studied. Bill Gaines was incredulous.
He had made a famous speech and said, "Do we think that the youth of America," I'm paraphrasing of course, "is so stupid that they just see somebody using an axe on someone else, now they're going to run out, get an axe, and then do that."
In 1954, Senator Estes Kefauver chaired the hearing before the subcommittee to investigate juvenile delinquency. It was comic melodrama. The first 12 issues of Mad and many EC horror comics were entered into evidence. Gaines volunteered to testify.
I was the first publisher in these United States to publish horror comics. I'm responsible. I started them. Some may not like them. That's a matter of personal taste. It would be just as difficult to explain the harmless thrill of a horror story to a Dr. Wortham as it would be to explain the sublimity of love to a frigid old maid.
The Senate report condemned the, quote, concentrated diet of crime, horror, and violence found in comic books. But before Congress could step in to censor comics, the leading publishers offered to self-regulate. They formed the Code of the Comics Magazine Association and established strict guidelines.
You couldn't show anybody shooting a gun. You couldn't show anybody getting killed. Love comics, you couldn't show kissing.
Comics that followed the rules would get a seal of approval. No seal, and distributors wouldn't put them on the stands. As a result, all of Bill Gaines' old horror and crime comics withered. Only Mad managed to eke out a profit. Barely. So, Gaines made a revolutionary and risky decision. Comic books were being censored, but magazines weren't. The July 1955 issue of Mad hit the newsstands with a different look. Due to printing concerns, the first issue, printed on a higher grade of paper, was in black and white, 64 pages, and no ads. And this first magazine featured an adopted son that resonated with American youth, a wiseacre, gap-toothed boy who would be named Alfred E. Newman.
99.9% of the people walking down New York's Madison Avenue have ulcers and nervous tics. They are worried. They've lost control of their lives to big business and big government. The 0.0001% who don't worry and still show signs of life work 13 floors above the avenue at Mad Magazine. Alfred E. Newman mascot, the What Me Worry Kid. The satirical magazine is in its 31st year, and we were after an interview with Mad's publisher, William Gaines. Somewhat of an ogre, we had better luck with Mad's editor, Al Feldstein. Both Al and Bill have been with Mad from the beginning.
You know, as long as the world is going along and crazy things are happening and insanity is present, we're going to react.
Surprisingly, Al is one of only 7 salaried staffers at America's most loved Yuck magazine.
He does really great stuff.
Some 30 freelance writers and artists like Don Martin, Tom Koch, Jack Davis, Angelo Torres, and Larry Siegel, the usual gang of idiots, are freelancers. They live and smirk right alongside their 1.25 million readers.
The reader is feeling put upon by something, and Mad says, hey guys, you're being put upon by this. And I say, yeah, that's right. They're doing that. Boy, that's right.
We got an entirely different view of the humor magazine in its back offices. Here, unsung artists and other low-paid weirdos thanklessly toiled in dimly lit sweatshops. We knew something was rotten when writer Dick DiBartolo tried to warn us about work conditions.
I just can't keep up with him. I just don't know what he's talking about half the time.
Senior editor Nick Meglin denied everything, but finally put us through to Big Cheese publisher William Gaines.
You cannot control the writers. There's no way to control the writers. This is a writer-oriented magazine. We never assign topics.
I just have to pick up my paycheck. In case you didn't know, we get paid scale.
It became clear why Gaines had tried to avoid us. The poor man may control the purse strings at Mad, but nothing else. His operation is cheaper than the so-called cheap price of his magazine. He won't even sell advertising.
We don't believe in merchandising. We make fun of people who suck every last dime out of a product, and so we won't do it.
Gaines unconvincingly tried to make us believe that he, too, was as hard-working as the rest of his staff. I then asked him if readers resented Mad's $+ price.
I'm sure not.
Ask him something easier.
So I asked him something easier. From whence came Alfred E. Newman?
Well, Alfred is about 100 years old. He was first used, and we've researched this quite a bit, he was first used by a painless dentist in Topeka, whose name was Painless Romaine. And they used the picture of Alfred with the tooth missing, and the legend, "It didn't hurt a bit." Subsequently, Alfred popped up with his legend, "What Me Worry," which we did not create.
Elfie appeared on postcards and in the early 50s joined Mad as a cover boy.
His "What Me Worry" is deeply philosophical when you think about it.
The artists and writers are listed in the magazine as the usual gang of idiots. They are quite talented idiots. One reason for Mad's success may be that, with a few exceptions, it is the same gang who've been turning it out all these years. And these are the key suspects involved with putting it out 8 times a year. Apart from Gaines, the so-called creative staff consists of Nick Meglin, Dick DiBartolo, and on drums, John Ficarra.
I would have thought that Mad would be out of business by now, and I'll tell you why. There's so much outrageous, more outrageous than you guys are, stuff available to young people now, that I thought you would kind of look a bit corny in the late 80s.
Well, we don't really know why it works. It's just been working for 35 years. And we try not to analyze it because we may blow it.
One thing Mad is not, it is not a product of market research.
Bill won't take readership surveys because he's afraid that if we find out the bulk of our readers are 12 to 16 males, that we might start subconsciously pandering to them.
There's never been a demographic study?
Or Republican.
You feel you're back in the Depression at the Mad offices. Neatness does not count. Cheapness does.
Here comes the good questions.
Gaines's penny pinching is legendary.
I have seen Bill break up a conference with the entire staff assembled for 2 days to track down a $1.75 telephone call that no one will fess up to making.
As cheap as he is day to day, he will, on the spur of the moment, take the entire staff to Europe for a couple of weeks for an eating and drinking binge. He once flew everyone down to Haiti to talk the sole subscriber there into renewing.
We all went to his house to beg him to resubscribe to Mad, and he did.
I wonder if you did have advertisers, who would want to advertise Mad?
Well, that's another reason we don't have advertising.
No, I wonder, seriously. Let's think, who would...
Coke
Well,
offered us
certainly
money
the
at one
soda
point.
companies and the gum companies, I think, would be a prime candidate.
But then we worry because we would hate to have our readers getting cavities because
You
we
would
took
hate.
ads.
It's okay to rot their mind, but not their teeth.
With his jug-handle ears and what me worry grin, Alfred E. Newman, the mascot of Mad Magazine, is America's perennial smart aleck.
The interesting thing about Alfred, he has no profile. Everything you've ever seen with Alfred, it's either dead on or off the back flat of his head. And he's always making eye contact with you.
He is sort of like the Mona Lisa, I guess.
This is our 400th cover, which is all the covers that we did prior to that.
John Ficarra is the editor-in-chief of Mad Magazine, which, believe it or not, turns 60 this year.
Do you want to do Romney Boo Boo?
Ficarra has been at the magazine for 32 years.
We are the guys that were sitting in the cafeteria making fun of everybody, shooting milk out of our nose and doing all those other things. We just get paid for it now. That's basically it.
Make fun of everything. That's pretty much the credo of Mad. From film spoofs of Jaws, to those Twilight vampire movies, to pot shots at politicians of all stripes. Here's President Richard Nixon and Vice President Spiro Agnew, famously dressed up like the con men from The Sting. Young readers weren't just getting a good laugh, they were learning to read between the punchlines.
The thing about Mad that's always been great, and it's our one thread through the years, is that to question authority.
For a long time, Mad was the only game in town, but it soon inspired other class clowns to take up the funny business. From Graydon Carter's own Spy magazine, to The Onion,
Mad Magazine,
to America's most famous 10-year-old.
Excuse me, is this Mad Magazine?
No, it's Mademoiselle. We're buying our sign on the installment plan.
When I'm watching The Simpsons, I kind of feel like it's Mad animated.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect analogy. Clearly you can see roots from Mad into The Simpsons. In fact, you can sort of find Mad everywhere, but each generation takes Mad and then I think reinterprets it. Here's Billy Joel, and he even blacked out his tooth.
Being parodied in Mad can be a badge of honor.
I think a lot of people feel that way, that it's sort of like a stamp that you've arrived in pop culture.
Others haven't taken it so well.
Day after day, they send my friends away to mansions cold and grey, to the far side of town, where the thin men stalk the streets while the sane stay underground. Day after day, they tell me I can go, they tell me I can blow to the far side of town, where it's pointless to be high, 'cause it's such a long way down. So I tell them that I can fly, I will scream, I will break my arm, I will do me harm. Here I stand, foot in hand, talking to my wall. I'm not quite right at all, am I? Don't set me free, I'm as heavy as can be, just my librium and me, and my EST makes 3, 'cause I'd rather stay here with all the madmen than perish with the sad men roaming free. And I'd rather play here with all the madmen, but I'm quite content they're all the same as me.
I propose a toast to Don Vito Minestrone, the biggest syndicate leader in the country.
Hey, you. I'm with the Syndicate Anti-Defamation League. Don't you know you're not supposed to use the word syndicate in this picture?
Oh, sorry. How about a toast to Don Vito Minestrone, the biggest racketeer and miter in the country?
That's better. What a fantastic makeup job. How did they ever get him to look so old? I can't believe it's really Marlo Brandon. Oh, yeah, that's Marlo Brandon, all right.
Oh, Papa, I'm so happy on my wedding day. Why aren't you happy, too? Why do you look so pained?
Do you think it's easy to see a little girl grow up? You think it's easy to give her away to another man? You think it's easy to talk with 8 pounds of cotton in your cheeks?
Mad Magazine presents Gall and the Family Fair.
Hi there, and welcome to the Middle American home of TV's first and foremost foul-mouthed father image, Starchy Bunker Hill, and me, his incredibly stupid wife, Dingaling. Each week, we bring you another episode in our lives filled with hilarious controversy and uproarious vulgarity. Oh, our special guest shock word for this week is faggot. And now, before Starchy gets home and starts his usual tirades against everyone regardless of race, creed, or national origin, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born of Spanish parents and I...
Hey, you dumb spick! Didn't you hear me ringing the doorbell?
And here he is, folks, America's beloved bigot.
What a day. I punched a dago, I belted a coon, and kicked a mick.
See, Starch, it all evens up. Yesterday you complained you had a bad day.
I'll get the phone. Hey, listen to me, you tidy rotten heeb. I had it with you pushy Jews. You seen one kike, you seen them all.
Starchy? Who's that on the phone?
My father. Boy, I hate all kinds of Jews. Orthodox, Reformed.
But Starchy, your father is Protestant.
They're the worst kind.
Isn't he simply adorable, folks? See why America loves him so much?
Well, well. Here come the 2 dummies who live with us.
Hi there, folks. I'm Starchy's moronic daughter, Glorioski.
And I'm her nebbish husband, Meek. We've got a special function on the show. While conservatives in the audience identify with him, the liberals can identify with us.
Now you know why liberalism is dying. Well, what's new, you stupid Polak?
Starchy, must you say that?
Why not? I always say it. And then you call me a reactionary pig. And then I yell at you and you yell at me. Look, I work hard all day. Ain't I entitled to a little pleasure?
This one particular time, I spread out a bunch of magazines on the floor, and I try to see some uniting element in these magazines, and it struck me right away. Playboy had this big, fancy, colorful fold-out. National Geographic had one. I said, well, they all fold out. Mad would have to fold in.
Right.
So I got the notion to do a very simple fold-in idea, black and white, no fancy color or anything. And I wrote, all the fancy magazines have beautiful color fold-outs, and here we go with a cheap black and white Mad fold in.
Tell me about your process of actually doing the artwork, because you paint them first, and you don't ever actually fold them in yourself.
No, I paint them on heavy illustration board, which cannot be folded. What I do is I use a piece of tracing paper, and I put the tracing paper over the left side, and then I bring it over to the right side, and if it doesn't make the right connection, then I mark it and I fix it.
So you've been doing the Mad fold-ins for 50 plus years, and you've been writing and drawing for 70. Do you ever feel like, maybe it's time for me to retire, or you think you're just gonna keep doing this forever?
I feel that as long as the gray matter in my dome is moving around correctly, I want to keep working.
After all you've been through in your life,
Stop what your country can do for you.
with American sons in the field far away, I shall resign the presidency.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. 1,000 points of light.
After all you've been through, you deserve your own channel. VH1, when you've seen it all.